Yeah, so welcome to the show.
Thanks for
I
having me,
mean,
Tom.
yeah, it's good to meet you at the club and, really admire what you're doing with the clothing.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, tell us a little bit more about yourself, how you came about to creating your own brand.
Yeah. Well, there's kind of three pillars I think that of life that kind of came together. The first being my background in music and fashion.
Yeah.
The second being my history working for a purpose-driven brand, and then the third being just having a passion for empowering women. And those three things kind of came together. With music and fashion, I grew up singing since I was
Okay.
really, really young.
Can we find your music out there?
You can. It's V Contreras.
Okay.
So VCONTRE.
That's all on, there's taking a look at it.
Oh, you probably have to put, separate the V and the Contreras. Yeah. Oh, TRERAS. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Alternative soul.
That's me with a lot of makeup on.
I'll have to check
touching
out.
Up. Yeah. So I've been singing and writing music since I was really young. I think I started singing because I always have been like an anxious person, and there's a lot of properties to singing that are similar to yoga. It's like you have to be totally still, create sound with an instrument that's part of your body by using air, and it's just so calming. And so I still, to this day, like if I feel stressed out, I'll be like, I think I need to just go sing for a little bit.
So do you sing your own songs, or do you?
I sing. My solo albums are my own music, but I've been singing covers, and I sing with a jazz band, a country, and a lot of soul throughout my life. My first paid performance, I was in The Sound of Music, and I was 10 years old. Yeah. And I was one of the Bone Trap children.
Okay.
And that's when I actually realized the power of clothing. You rehearse for like 2 to 3 months, and then a week or two before the show, you do dress rehearsal and the costumes come. And that was where I was like, everything came to life. All of a sudden, I was this Bone Trap kid. And
so the clothes kind of put you even more in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it made me realize how there's such a correlation between what we're wearing and our confidence level. And I went on to start singing covers, like I was telling you, jazz and all these different things. And I was able to wear what I wanted. So that's when I thought, well, I want to feel as confident as I possibly can. So I started sketching mostly dresses, and then would have them made. A friend's mom was an amazing seamstress, and so she would make them, as well as like homecoming dresses, prom dresses. I have like one homecoming dress that was worn by like 3 of my friends from other schools. Yeah, that year. But it just became a real passion of mine to really bring those two loves together. And I actually thought about or went down the path of going to fashion school, I think 3 times.
Why 3 times?
I don't think the time was ever right. It was like after college, and I was like, do I want to go back to school and do this thing? And my first DECA project in high school was a fashion brand. So it's just something that I've always really loved and been passionate about.
So what was it about fashion that drove you?
I think it was the feeling of how clothes can make you feel, how they can make you feel more confident. Or, I mean, there's nothing worse than like you're up on stage speaking somewhere and you're wearing something you hate or that doesn't feel like you. And
or it doesn't match like the persona.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. So I like the psychological aspect of clothes. I feel like they're like our superpower that sometimes we forget about. So, and then the second pillar is I worked for the largest nonprofit arts organization in Washington for a long time. I wanted to learn the business side of the music industry, and I worked my way up to the leadership team, and I was in this role heading up the sales and service department. And what I loved about what I was doing was the nonprofit mission, the stewarding historic theaters and the education and outreach programs that were really targeting vulnerable communities and giving them access to art. And I noticed what I got really passionate about was introducing patrons to those programs. And I saw how their loyalty changed and how the brand became different to them. And, you know, there's a lot of organizations in the space of presenting shows, you know, your Live Nations, your AEGs. But there was a different brand loyalty. And I think a lot of it had to do with the nonprofit aspect. And so I always thought if I ever started a business, I definitely wanted to be purpose driven because that's what got me out of bed every day. And I knew like if I am starting a company, it's got to connect with my values and purposeful. So
yeah. In business, we call that the triple bottom line.
Oh,
right. So it's purpose, profit, and people.
I like that.
Yeah. What was the name of the nonprofit you were involved?
Seattle Theater Group.
Seattle Theater. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, STG.
STG. Okay. Yeah.
And so I was there in that role for like 10 years and it was a new role. And I kind of was able to operate kind of like entrepreneurial where throw things at the wall and see what sticks and make the role my own. But about like 7 years into it, I was starting to feel like my growth opportunities were dwindling and feeling like I've got to do something else. And when the pandemic hit, like so many people, I was forced with that. What do you want to do? You know, that moment. And I felt like, I mean, honestly, it's really scary and risky to leave a job you've been at for a long time, whether it's a little cushy and comfortable. But I felt like there was more risk in not making a change than there was in me staying. And that feeling of regretting, like, you know, what if?
Yeah, because the idea's always been in your head and you're like, well, it might be too risky.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic just gave you an opportunity to really just go for it.
It did. Yeah. It did. And I had been, you know, thinking about it for a long time. I didn't know what the business was going to be, though. I just knew it was going to be purpose driven. And so I left on great terms and just was really quiet for a long time. And I worked on a lot of like self-discovery, really trying to prepare myself for whatever it was going to be that I was going to launch because, you know, we all have a lot of limiting beliefs and stuff that we need to get rid of before you can really get to that point. And so I worked with an amazing therapist and just really worked on myself. And I think that sometimes people think that it's selfish to work on yourself. And what I really realized was that it affected everybody around me in such a positive way for me to be in a better place and be taking care of myself. And I think we don't think about that, but it's actually really beneficial for everybody.
Well, there's the saying, if you can't help yourself, how can you help other people?
It's so true.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if you think about in an airplane, they ask you to put the mask on first before you put your neighbor's mask on.
So true.
Yeah.
That's a really good correlation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have this book of mostly bad business ideas that I write in all the time. And I love Shark Tank and I'm like thinking of all these ideas. And there were a ton of ideas that are way more fundable or, you know, TikTok moments. But I just thought, I just can't connect with this. You know, it's got to be meaningful. It's got to be something that it's going to impact others. And so I had this duster that hung in my office for years. I was part of this panel, this keynote panel, and I was getting ready. This is my former career. Getting ready the day before, and I had my outfit on, and I was like, nothing against politicians, but I look like a politician, and I'm like working in the rock and roll space. I'm like, this does not make sense. This doesn't look like me.
So you're in a suit.
Yeah, totally. I was in a suit. So I ran to my favorite vintage store, and I found this duster, and I just popped it on over a jumpsuit, and I felt so confident.
So what's okay? So in my mind, it's a duster.
It's like this, like
so it's just like that.
Like
okay,
this.
okay.
Yeah, just like a loose jacket.
So I'm picturing a duster, and I was like, "Is she gonna say dust the book and open?"
No. So I threw that on, and I felt really confident. And I remember thinking, I am so glad that you changed your outfit, because you probably would have lacked confidence and it would have been a very different experience had I worn something that I felt uncomfortable in, that didn't feel like me. And so I kept thinking about that item, and I kept it in my office, and I would grab it if I had like this meeting's going to be a tough one.
Yeah.
I need a little extra
it's your
boost.
cape.
Yeah. It was really like my superpower. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start with this one item. It's going to be this duster, which is this. I was actually able to get a patent on it for this mechanism where you can kind of modify the sleeve.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. You just snap it up here. And I thought, well, what can I do with this concept that will empower women? So the first thing that I did is I found a group of women who are all incredible graphic artists.
And this is local or just around the world? International.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so each of the prints that you see and even inside were developed by different women from around the world. Some were like the robe that your wife has. Yeah. That was a painting that she digitized, and that's what kind of has that tropical sunset kind of vibe. But it was such a fun collaboration and a really incredible way to be able to partner with different women and showcase their art on the dusters. So that was like the first product that I launched.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to launch? I mean, what was that process like? Because I've had some other people on other designers on the show, and it's a lot of trial and error.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So how did you decide that these are the designs you're gonna launch and really promote?
So I had 4 different kind of duster variations to start, and I had a company's kind of small mom and pop sew shop did this for samples, and I landed on this one. I just felt like it was the most dramatic, and
it's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and then I started going to textile events where mostly in LA and New York. And they basically bring together people that make textiles, manufacture textiles from around the world. And I knew about the harms of the clothing industry on the environment, that 8 to 10% of carbon emissions come from the clothing space, that 30% of the clothes that are produced go into a landfill.
Yeah.
So I knew that I wanted to use recycled materials. And so that's where I found this incredible textile company out of France. They're in Lyon, and met them in LA, and actually went there. Eventually to.
So you went to France?
Yeah, I went there and I met all the graphic designers that work there, and got to see the mill, and it was incredible. So that was kind of how that came together. And then, in terms of manufacturer, I joined a coaching program, a woman that coaches people who have fashion brands, and was able to find a manufacturer in New York who does a lot of work with Veronica Beard and Calvin Klein, and a lot of big brands, and they sometimes take on smaller brands. And so they agreed to take me on and to manufacture specifically the duster. And that's something else that was really important to me, because I've read statistics that 98% of the people that make our clothes don't make a living wage, and that 90% of them are women. So I felt like that was something I didn't want to contribute to either. And so everything's made in New York, fair wages are paid. I've gone to the manufacturing I call them our artisans, because it's a very small group of artisans that come together to sew the clothes, but I've been there many times. And,
so it's all hand sewn or? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not like an assembly line. It's a little bit different with the way that they do it. Some of the garments, one person will make the whole thing from start to finish.
So it's almost like a Brunello Cucinelli
kind of, yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
as I read about his brand, everything's handmade. It's all, and that's what justifies the price, apparently.
Right.
And all the materials are sustainably sourced.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting.
Well, and I think that's, we can make a lot of decisions as business owners. And one of the things I try to do is think about my values and how does this decision line up? And sometimes it might not be the best financial decision,
right?
But there is a contingency of people that will pay for quality and substance and the purpose behind a brand, and it's just finding those people.
So I guess for the audience, what's the purpose of the brand?
Well, the purpose of we're people and planet conscious brand, and one of the key focuses is to change the way that people look at their clothes. So by giving the clothes meaning,
right?
So if you look through your closet and you think about like what are like the three things that you're like, I'm never letting go of that. There's usually a story behind it.
Yeah.
Maybe you met the artisan. Maybe you were out of the country. Maybe, there's just something special. Maybe it was passed down for generations. And so that's really the way that I'm looking at sustainability is creating garments that you're just going to keep around forever. And they're meaningful to you because you know that women made the print and it was hand sewn in New York, and these little buttons are from Italy. Yeah. Just all the details.
Right. And you can almost imagine the person actually doing it.
Yes.
Right. They're sitting at their shop and whatnot and sewing it. And it's not some, slave labor or whatnot.
Right. Yeah. The fast fashion space is a big onion to peel, and there's a lot of ugly stuff behind it.
I bet. Yeah. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos of those cloth piles that you're talking about, like literally just burning. I'm like, why don't you just recycle that fabric?
I know brands they feel like it will tarnish their brand to see their items in a discount store, and so they'd rather burn it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wild.
Well, similar during the pandemic, like all the apple farmers or potato farmers were literally just dumping the potatoes in a pit. Like, how about just give it to the food bank?
Oh my gosh.
Right. So you can Google that stuff. I mean, it's like, wow.
Wild.
To control the price, control the market.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting. But with each business decision, I'm also always thinking about how could this empower women. So I'd love to tell you about this partnership that I have with.
Okay. Yeah.
And I brought, actually, this is our logo, but I brought an example. So I was able to partner with, this is the embroidery, and feel it. Like, this is the most high quality.
Oh, wow.
Isn't it? And this fabric.
The stitching's tight.
Isn't that amazing?
It's just stretchy. Yeah.
Yeah, this is
nice fabric.
This fabric's from Cupro. Yeah, it's amazing. It's like... Is
it a natural fabric?
It's a byproduct of cotton.
Okay.
And it feels like if silk and
suede had a baby. Soft.
Yeah. Silk.
So what does that whole garment look like?
Yeah, so this is a caftan dress. It's like this. And then you put the belt.
Oh, that's a belt?
Yeah, the belt goes around the waist. So you could wear it like super loose and drapey, or you can... It
can be like a casual or dress it up.
Yeah, or you can... Whoops.
What's the significance of that embroidery?
Yeah, so you can bring it more.
Okay.
So this embroidery was made by using a hand loom by women in the Chiapas Highlands in southern Mexico. It's one of the poorest regions in Mexico. And I was able to partner with this community of women and employ them and pay them fair wages.
Really? How'd you find them?
Wages. Through someone I met in London.
Yeah?
Who...
Are you from Mexico?
I'm not from Mexico.
Okay.
No, I'm not. And so this community of women, they took 9 to 11 hours to make each of these cuffs.
Really?
Yeah. And they're using a hand loom. So they have to string each piece of thread before even just starting the process. And
what's a hand loom look like?
Oh, yeah. Look at this.
So that's what they were using?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what they're using.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a really important part of their culture and the handloom industry specifically. And actually, the handloom industry for women specifically has a really rich history as well. But so I partnered with them. They actually sent me all the like different colors of thread, and I was able to pick them out. And then I had this fabric dyed to match. And then they were paid fair hourly wages, which is actually really rare because these.
So what's fair to them?
That's a good question. I forget what their minimum wage, but above minimum
wage for them. Wage, okay.
And for them, they're usually creating crafts and things and then sending them to the market for Americans to barter.
Yeah.
You know, and so for them to actually just
at the Fremont market.
Right. But for them to actually be paid fair wages for their work is quite unusual. And it was really cool because one of the gals, Christy, sent me a video of just sort of like the impact that this had on her.
Yeah.
And she sent me a video of her like out in her field, being able to watch the kids play while weaving and being able to contribute to the family income. And one of the things that she said that she loved the most about the partnership was that she felt like her work was being valued. And she was just excited to see it like in the U.S. market. So when it went live, she was just like, oh my gosh. And I should say one of the most important things is this design is copywritten in their community and is really important to their community. And
how do they enforce it?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. But that's something that I think is really important too, is making sure that you're giving credit.
Yep.
And that so often these designs are being mimicked also in the fast fashion space and the credit's not being given. So I think that us giving them credit also really helps make them feel valued.
Yeah, because I know with Zara's motto, I watched a special on Zara and you know how they started was they were mimicking all the fashion designers, right?
Yeah.
Big brands and then making it accessible for people.
Yeah.
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 So
I don't know how the copyright space is. It's actually really hard to copyright or trademark a design here, you know, or patent or whatever.
Interesting. Yeah. So even your designs might be at risk.
Yeah. I mean, this is patented, so that's not at risk, but yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to copyright a design. So is that that's on your website now? This is on my website. The other cool thing about it is each of them has a QR code. We only made 50 of these.
Oh, wow.
So it authenticates the garment. So potentially could have some value down the road.
Have you thought of putting maybe a video story along with each purchase?
I like that. That's a good idea.
Right. So that, you know, it connects the person even more to the garment.
Yeah, I like that.
Right. And then they go to parties and they can kind of share the story.
I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. They click on that QR code and see the story.
We do have, if you go to the Chiapas caftan.
That's the one my wife has, right?
She has the robe. If you go, and if you scroll down, there is
so you got different colors,
that tells you about.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there's a video, and it has Christy talking about the impact. We don't have a lot left, actually.
Mi nombre es Cristina Pérez Gómez, tengo 27 años, soy originaria de San Andrés, La Reina, Chiapas. Empecé a trabajar a hacer el telar de cintura, empecé a los 11 años, pues al trabajar con la marca Yomisma y así le vamos a ir enseñando cómo se hace o cómo se prepara un telar. Y así vamos a pasar por generación de generación, así como nos enseñaron nuestros mamás, nuestras abuelas, pues todas las personas las que ven nuestro trabajo, pues espero que les guste, igual que lo valoren, porque es hecho a mano. Y algo hecho a mano no es igual.
Met the person in London and then connected with these people.
Yep.
Big shout out and a huge thank you to Zekin for making this happen. They have an amazing platform. Check out their website, zekin.com, zeacon.com.
So she is from this region.
Okay.
And she had some embroidery with her, and it was at a sustainability conference in London. Same trip as when I went to Lyon. And I'm like, this embroidery is so beautiful. And almost every piece of clothing that I've held onto for a long time has some kind of embroidery or something handmade. And so I wanted to do a collaboration with embroidery, and just knowing that it's like the backbone of a lot of cultures, and it gives you opportunity to showcase their culture and preserve an art form. And so she's sitting there, and we just started chatting, and we kept in touch. And eventually I just said, can we collaborate? Can we do something? And so she was able to help connect me to Christy and this community of women. And like I said, choose the colors.
Yeah.
It was really fun. So, it's been really interesting. It's said that there's 200 million artisans that live below the poverty line.
Really?
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of potential for brands like my own to be able to partner with some of these artisans and really showcase their work and ensure that this piece of their culture stays alive.
Yeah. And the world knows about it. Right.
Yeah. It's really important. It's so important to their Mayan culture.
And the technology is there to kind of amplify that.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas maybe if you started this 20 years ago, it'd be tough to get the word out.
Yes.
Right.
It would be. Yeah. I sell through a company called Wolf and Badger. They only sell like sustainable and ethical brands. And they did a Instagram takeover on this garment. Wow. It was really cool. And they used some of this footage. And it was really amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this reminds me. So a while back, I went to India for a friend's wedding. And he introduced me to somebody who was making sandals, beach sandals. But these were beach sandals made by women in India who were living below the poverty line and whatnot. But she worked on that for several years, and I think she put a pause on it. But I think it was before this was an it thing.
Right. Like Tom's or before.
Yeah. So be curious if what she's up to now, but this kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we have an opportunity as business owners to help others. And I feel like, it's almost our responsibility in a way.
So where do you get inspiration for like next season's designs and whatnot? Or are you going to focus on what you have right now? And
I'm focusing on what we have right now. We just launched our new robes that can also be worn as like a swimsuit cover-up.
Okay.
So we'll be focusing on really pushing those this spring, positioning them more as a swimsuit cover-up. They work great either way. And then be rolling some things out probably in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah. But I get inspiration from traveling, from seeing people's artwork, from music, listening to music, a little bit of everything. Thinking about things that I'd like to wear that I can't find.
Right.
Those sorts of things.
Interesting.
I can tell you a little bit about some of the other partnerships we've
had. Yeah.
So we with the fabric that's remaining from production is called dead stock, or also dead stock might be fabric that a designer has created or ordered, and then they decide, I'm not going to do that. Not going to use that. So for us, our dead stock is what we're not using for production. And so we held all of that aside, and I worked with World Relief, and they have a sewing program. And so I worked with 6 refugees from Afghanistan who had just gone through the sewing program here.
Here in Seattle?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's based in Kent is where the World Relief is there. And they created scrunchies and scarves out of our dead stock fabric. So those are on our website too.
So World Relief is out of Kent? Or is it
they're national.
There's a national organization.
But, so I just... It was kind of a kismet moment. I just called them and said, I'm interested in collaborating. Do you have any women who have sewing skills? And they were like, actually, next week we're finishing our sewing program and they're all graduating. And I'm like, what? So I went in there and was able to work with them. And then it's incredible because many of them are highly educated, had jobs as teachers or professors or all these different, incredible careers. And then they
in Afghanistan,
they come here fleeing their circumstances, and our childcare is so expensive.
Yep.
And then, they don't speak the language extremely well yet. And so they're looking for work, something they can do at home. So it was awesome. And they were able to sew. One of the gals had a young baby. So she was like, I sew when the baby wakes up in the middle of the night, or, she's sewing at odd hours.
It's like remote work.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was so cool to bring them their checks. I remember going to the office and 4 of the 6 of them were there, and they're just like staring at, $400 to $600 checks because I was paying them the hourly wages. And they're just like, and I said, what are you going to do with the check? And most of them were going to send the majority of it back to their family that was in Afghanistan.
Really?
Yeah.
How did they even get the money back there? Is it Western Union or?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
And my question, so I was thinking like, why of all the places, you come from a sunny place and you wind up in Seattle.
I know.
Like how
does that happen?
How did that journey happen?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
One of the guys I interviewed actually, or had on the show the other day was, the episode's going to launch next week. It's about the border. Oh. And there's so many people coming from so many countries. So what you see on TV, I mean, that thing's real, right? And I was wondering, like, how do they make that journey? Because that's far.
Physically, yeah. How does this happen?
Right. So, like, even for the ladies, like from there, leaving what they had to coming to their journey to now making a living, that's impressive.
It really is.
Yeah.
I don't think I realized the impact. I mean, I would like to hire them on an ongoing basis, but we don't have any more dead stock right now. But I think the impact of feeling value, participating in your family's economic state, having something to do that feels purposeful when you wake up, it's really important. It's really impactful. I was surprised about that. I didn't think about that aspect, but I was highly educated women unable to work, and now they have something to. But Wellspring Family Services is this really extraordinary organization here in Seattle that takes a really nuanced approach to homelessness. So it's not like a one size fits all.
Yeah.
They bring people in who are nearing experiencing homelessness. They try to help you before you get to that point and talk to you about what is it that you need. And they meet their constituents where they are. So it's not just about like everybody gets housing or everybody gets, maybe it's very nuanced, and it seems to be extremely effective because of that.
Yeah, that's interesting because, we had the mayor of Bellevue here the other day, and, she talked about like how we might view a homeless as, they might just they might just want to be there. So I think it's good that Wellspring meets them where they're at, because imagine going to them, it's like, I think you need help. Right. It's very,
what we're going to do to help you.
It's very a judgmental way to think about it. And I never thought of it that way. Yeah.
They said, Wellspring shared that I think they said 16% of the people that we see on the streets that are homeless, or the people that we see on the streets that are homeless represent 16% of the homeless community. The rest are all families. They're couch surfing. They're sleeping in their cars. They're the people that we aren't seeing. And that's really, they're targeting the families more than anything.
And helping them get back on their feet.
Yeah. And trying to keep them at their jobs, because they said that usually you lose your house before you lose your job. And so trying to, find them accommodations.
So how did you become so passionate about just giving back?
I think, when I was young, my parents wanted to give us opportunities to sing. My sister and I both, grew up singing. And so we sang for homeless shelters, for old folks' homes since we were really young. And I think I remember thinking, like, I love music because it calms me down and it feels really good to sing. But I remember in those moments going, no, I love music because of the effect it has on other people. It's like, you see like old men crying because you're singing a nostalgic song that reminds them of when they were 30, and little kids are singing Christmas songs and they're feeling like this doesn't really feel like Christmas because they're in the foster system and things like that. So I think I feel like I'm really motivated by like impact. And then when I worked for the nonprofit, it was not, my department was responsible to bring in a lot of money. But the thing that moved me and wanted me to go to work, or inspired me to go to work every day, was the impact we were making on the community. And
which helped with bringing in the money because you're able to relay that story.
Yeah. So I feel like I feel really driven by making an impact and helping other people. I think because of volunteering as a child. Yeah.
So it's ingrained in you and you grew up with it.
Yeah.
So what makes, when you were at STG, what made it easy for people to give?
I think what made people inspired to give was they either would resonate with stewarding historic theaters, which is expensive and important, but probably more so it was programs. So taking donors to see like Dance with Parkinson's, where you're seeing people with Parkinson's up there on their feet dancing and feeling joy and moving their bodies in a space without any judgment, or programs where kids are getting to see Hamilton for free. And
those were expensive tickets. By the way.
Really expensive tickets. And I think that it changes the relationship you have with a company or a brand when you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. And so those were the moments that really were like brought me joy and just kept me going. And those are honestly the moments for me with Yomisma. I would say to like any of your listeners who are thinking about starting a company, think about your why, write it down, make it your screensaver, because you're going to have to remember it a lot of times. There is going to be a lot of moments where you're like, what am I doing? Why did I even go down this path? It's scary. It's risky. It's isolating sometimes, having your own business on your own. All those things. But when I have the opportunity, when I get in those spaces, I take the opportunity to really sit with my why. Why am I doing this? And that keeps you driven. And I think that that's one of the most important things
Yeah.
in starting a business.
Especially just what you said earlier, you hand a check and, maybe you're having a bad day or a good day on your way to that.
Yes.
But as soon as you handed that check and you see the person's face light up, you're like, okay, this is why I'm going through these entrepreneurial challenges. And,
Yeah. It makes everything that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And without that, I think it's easy to feel like you want to give up,
Right.
or, all the.
How many times a month do you feel like you want to give up?
And like, go back to my screensaver.
Yeah. Call STG. I was like, hey.
Yeah, it's important so that you remember your why, and also that whatever you're doing aligns with your values.
Mm-hmm. And do you instill that with your family and your personal life? Mm-hmm. Is same principles apply to the family?
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think marriages work when your values align,
mm-hmm.
and when things fall apart is when they don't.
Yeah.
And your values are like instilled in you. They're not going to evolve that much throughout
mm-hmm.
your life. They are what they are. And if your values are different, that's when I've seen things crash.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, my husband and we're totally different. We can be more different, but we have
same
foundation. Yeah. Exact, like top 3 things are exactly the same that we value.
Yeah. And it also shows like through the business world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I didn't tell you is the meaning behind Yomisma.
Mm-hmm.
So Yomisma means self in Spanish.
Uh-huh.
And it really represents like the self journey that I went on to be still, to think thoughtfully about
mm-hmm.
what it is I want to do next, and really take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it really represents to me self-care, self-expression,
mm-hmm.
self-love, all of those things.
Oh, wow. And it's on the website, I imagine.
It is.
Yeah.
It sure is.
It's interesting. Do you find that a lot of fashion brands don't have lost their meaning? I should actually send you an article. I don't know, maybe you've come across it, but it's a study from McKinsey, and it talks about how brands because cookies are going away and a lot of these tracking things are going away, right, to protect people's privacy. Brands have to go back to storytelling. Right.
Oh, I'd love to read that. I haven't read
Yeah, so I'll send it over to you, see what you think. But I think it's amazing that there's a story, right? It's like you're not just buying this for the heck of it. It's like you're supporting people,
mm-hmm.
right? And people that have less means than most others.
Yeah, I think that to cut through all the noise,
mm-hmm.
you kind of have to have something more than just a pretty dress.
Yeah.
At least for some people. I mean, some people that's enough.
Right.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, though, that's challenging
mm-hmm.
is it's really hard to, like, you felt this.
Yeah.
It's really high quality, right?
Yep.
It's
like, you can tell.
Beautiful. Like, the craftsmanship's so beautiful.
And it's not stiff.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've seen embroidery that's stiff.
Super stiff. Yeah. But you can't see this online.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to be like, this is $360.
Yeah.
And someone's like, why? I see something that, maybe is similar at
for $100.
Yeah. And you're like, put those side by side. So one thing that I did this summer was I had a caftan party.
What's that?
I basically just had a caftan, just like a big, I have some on our website, but it's this big kind of moo comfy resort wear garment. And I invited 50 women,
mm-hmm.
and it was at a residence in Magnolia, and we just had some appetizers
mm-hmm.
and drinks, and I had a shopping experience downstairs, and we did a fashion show with models and with real people.
Oh, wow.
And it was so much fun, and the women had so much fun shopping. They were shopping together, and they could feel the fabric. And I told them about the stories behind the clothes. And I am interested in pursuing that as more of a business model that I do more often, because I feel like it was building community.
Yeah. No, I like that because, I mean, I've been to trunk shows before, and this sounds like a supercharged trunk show.
Yeah.
Right? Because usually at a trunk show, it's just, here's the wares and here's some drinks.
Yeah.
But you created an experience around it.
Yeah, it was so fun. And all the women, they didn't all know each other, but everyone was like-minded. And I just got so many nice letters after, like, oh my gosh, I met like this person and that person. It was so much fun. And the energy was so positive. And it really gave me the opportunity to tell everybody about the garments, for people to see what the garments look like on real people and models, and then for them to feel and touch and try on that garments. And I feel like in the space of everything's online, there is a little white space for building community, bringing people together in person and doing something a little bit different. And I feel like that's something I would like to replicate.
I think you should run with that, because I also read another article that talked about, you know, people think the malls are dead, but Gen Z is actually propping up those malls. They want to be able to look at something online, and when they're ready, they have an experience of the mall, walking through the mall, feeling the fabric, whatnot. So I think you're onto something. Yeah.
It was.
Well, that sounds really much more fun than walking through a mall.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah.
And I feel like every time I go to Bellevue Square, it is like popping. When people are like, malls are dead, I'm like, I don't know. Not up here.
Not up here. Yeah. I think it's one of the most profitable malls in America per square foot.
Wow.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
It's packed every time, right?
Every time.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't notice there's a recession there. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. But I think we're probably going to see a resurgence of brick and mortar stores, but people are going to do things different. And it's going to be more interesting experiences. And
you have to make it memorable. Yeah.
Other things together, right?
Yeah. Because I know if you go to Nordstrom, some days they have the DJ playing. Oh, yeah. I think Lucky Brand had drinks. Like
Nordstrom has the bars now.
Yeah, Nordstrom has the bars. Smart. I don't know why they never did that earlier.
Right.
Because I like to play a place to sit while the wife is shopping.
Right. Yeah. It's genius. It's genius. Yeah. I think we'll see more of that, more interesting collaborations happening. And I think people want to gather more than ever.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to have you. Really love what you're doing with Yomisma. And I hope that more people come to your shop.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Where can people find you?
At yomismaclothing.com.
Okay. Are you on social media or?
Oh, yeah. All of our handles are Yomisma Clothing. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, pleasure to have you
and
appreciate learning about your journey.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning into the show. If you found value in what our guests shared and what we share on the show, please feel free to share with your friends and family. We'd love to see you back here. Thank you again. And you can find us on pretty much every social media channel, YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify as well. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Step into the Unscripted Arena.
This podcast episode was recorded and produced at Zekin Podcast Studios. For more information, visit zekin.com/podcast.